Welcome to yet another episode of Headlines Reporter Talk Show. Today we have Amijas, an extremely distinguished person in his own right, an industrialist turned author, Mr. R.P. Gupta, whose book Turnaround India was released first time by Mr. Narendra Modi. So you can think of it, it's not just a simple book or yet another book. It has got something. And as you all know that for the last 2 years, all of us have been going through a very challenging times, so to say. And still we do not know what's up in store going forward. Maybe our GDP will come down. Why maybe it will come down? Because of the time that we have gone through. Then we'll have a kind of foreign exchange shortage also. Sovereign ratings will also come down. Foreign investment will eventually come down also. So all this taken together, we need the economy needs a solution which is out of the box. Since you have written these books with full of innovative suggestions, may I start with you by asking what is the kind of out of the box solution that we need at this point in time?
Well, among several other ideas, one idea I had suggested looking into the present situation, that is the gold monetization scheme.
Right.
Because India private gold stock is exceeding 25,000 tons, which is highest in the world. No country has got so much of private gold stock. So that innovative idea is how to use that private gold in a manner that it is a win-win situation for the gold holders who will be depositing with RBI and all that, and the other stakeholders in that manner. I have suggested that.
So we already have a gold monetization scheme which was incepted way back in 2015.
Right.
So 7 years have passed by. So and in between there has been some amendments. The new gold monetization scheme has also come into being into 2019. So how has been the progress so far, or why didn't the original world succeed that way?
Your question is very right, that 7 years has crossed after 2015 and some amendments were also done. Despite this thing, it could not succeed. In fact, I believe that the concept was all right, but probably the detailed working was somehow missing, because first thing is that depositor, it is not so viable for the depositor because it is not liquid scheme. It is for fixed year deposits, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 7 years, 7 to 12 years and all that. So people want that whenever they want to withdraw, they should be allowed that thing, which is not provided here.
Easy liquidity.
Easy liquidity, you are right. And another was the tax hazards. The tax implication should be predictable, which was missing. And on top of it, it is neither viable for banks nor viable for government. So any unviable scheme, financially viable, what I mean to say. Why I am saying financially not viable? Considering the inflation in the gold price. Inflation in the gold price and interest to the depositors and then service charges and all that, by virtue of which the overall cost of the scheme was going very high. So with unviable scheme, the focus was also, government focus was also missing, and they switched over to some other sovereign bond, gold bond and all that, instead of focusing on this thing. But I am sure if it is done in a manner which I have prescribed in my book, then it could be a game changer.
So as you mentioned a few minutes back that there is a huge idle gold reserves in the hands of Indian public at large, because gold, over the years historically has been considered to be a very auspicious and sacrosanct kind of thing. So if one has to take that gold out of that idle reserve, they have to be lured with something else. It has to be protected also.
Very correct.
So, what are the kind of things that should be given or offered to individuals who are holding huge gold assets or reserves?
Well, first thing that I have been suggesting unusable jewelries and idle gold.
Right.
Not the usable jewelries and all that. Which, to my opinion, of course, no concrete data is available, but various estimates and all that, it could be exceeding 10,000 tons. And it is increasing day by day, every year. First thing that there has to be, scheme has to be liquid. Any day they want, they can encash it. I have suggested the same thing over there. And suitable model, how to do it this way. Number two, it has to be obviously interest bearing and all that. And third thing, in the existing scheme, the melting charges and all that has to be borne by the depositors. That should not be applicable to them. And as I told, tax matter should be clearly resolved. There should be predictable tax, and tax has to be designed in a manner that it is acceptable to the public. I have given a solution within the legal framework. Save and accept that for first 2 years, give some incentive over the legal framework, then you follow the legal framework. Minor incentives, not some major incentives and all that.
This has to be dissimilar to long-term capital gains tax imposition.
Yes, exactly. You have rightly told. First thing, that there are certain exemption limits. One is 500 grams per a married couple, 250 grams per individuals, 100 grams for, likewise some exemptions are there. So up to that thing there should be no incidence of the tax. Beyond that thing, what I have suggested, that if you ask that give me the purchase invoice, nobody can give, because most of the gold is inherited from the ancestor. Treat this as a zero price acquisition price. That means the today's price is the total capital gain. Treat like that. And long-term capital gain, you charge 10%. Now, if anybody has purchased, he has got a purchase invoice and all that, let him go and take the refund from the income tax department. So, this is what I have suggested within the legal framework. Of course, religious trust should be exempted totally, irrespective of the quantity. And number two, that I have suggested that for 2 years, government may consider, instead of 10%, as an incentive, I am putting the 5%. 1 year or 2 years, depending upon the response and all that. So this is about the...
But if you mentioned that religious trust should be completely out of the purview of this long-term capital gain tax.
That is what my suggestion.
But maybe partially, because they also hold huge...
Those nitty-gritty government can decide. This is what I have suggested. I have suggested. Because rather I have also suggested this thing. 1 year interest you pay in advance, and lock-in period will be 1 year only. After that, if you want on demand any day, you can come and take the physical gold. If you want the cash, then that gold deposit certificate, which will be issued by RBI, it can be always sold in the market, and an adequate platform can be created. So practically there is no lockdown. Today they have deposited, tomorrow if they want to sell it, then in the cash they can go in collect the market. They want the gold back, then they have to wait for 1 year. But they did not wait for 7 years, 10 years as in the present scheme and all that. So this is for this purpose. Now coming to bank, I have totally isolated that they will be acting on behalf of RBI, and they should get the service fee. I have suggested some service fee. And in my calculation that the earning will be about 63,000 crores is coming over a period of 5 years in my calculation. Now everything is to be borne by RBI. Now RBI, that also, because I have given a typical calculation, and despite paying to banks and interest to the depositors and all that, they will be getting something like 43 or 44,000 crores over a period of 5 years. They will be also benefited. Now coming to government, in my estimate, within a period of 5 years, 12.5 trillion rupees is a conservative estimate. That much low cost, long tenure funds they can collect it from here. And not only that, the capital gain tax, I have estimated that about 1 trillion, 1 lakh crore, that will be also coming to the government. So that means everybody is in a win-win situation. Win-win situation. Nobody is loser.
So banks and RBIs are getting fees for individual parking their golds there with them. But those, each and every transaction should be reflected in RBI's balance sheet also, no? To make things.
In RBI balance sheet, very good question. In RBI balance sheet, this will be a domestic liability, but international assets, forex reserve. Currently, whatever reserves they are holding, those are international liability and international assets.
It should be other way.
Our country is having a net international liability, some 16% or something of that sort. I do not recollect the exact number. By virtue of this, it will be a net international asset surplus nation. To best of my knowledge, subject to check-up, probably UK is also not having a net international asset surplus status. To best of my knowledge, subject to check-up. I am not telling with the complete authority, but with my limited knowledge. So that will give a very high strength to our Indian currency. And once the Indian currency is strong, then any investor, global funds are flushed. Whatever you are seeing, $500-600 billion, it is nothing. It's a flushed financial market. Overall size of the global, if you talk, it is exceeding, sir, $200 trillion financial assets alone. If 0.5% of that comes, it becomes a big money for us. Big money for us. So what those financial investors want, they want a good yield. Nothing more than that. If your rupee is stable, the yield is supposed to be higher. And that money you put for the growth and development of the. And on top of it, what I have suggested also, that this gold deposit certificate, as it could be frequently traded in the exchange, so about 350 to 400 tons per year, people are only simply investing in the gold, means they don't have requirement for their family and all that. As an asset, they are investing. Instead of into the physical gold, like shares, they will be buying this GDC. It's RBI certificate. Import will come down. Balance requirement for the jewelry. This gold can be sold to the jewelers or can be given on lending basis. So that import of gold also
will come down.
I have estimated that within 2 to 3 years it should become zero. That itself will contribute, push the growth, to reduce the trade deficit by 2.1% of GDP and push the growth. Overall growth of GDP, in my view, in a 3 to 5 years time, should be 3.5 to 4.5%.
So on one hand, in terms of liquidity, it will be as good as equity. On the other, at one go, it will change India's status from being net international asset surplus. And gold import will also come down substantially. Thereby, whatever reserves we have, we can put it to productive and effective uses for development and infrastructure purpose.
That is a caveat, this thing, that whatever funds we are getting, that should be productively utilized, including the building of the human capital, that is education, health and all that. That should be utilized.
And to make it a transparent practice, it should be reflected on RBI's balance sheet so that one can keep track of what is the surplus from gold reserves. And
I have suggested that at least 50% stock you should always maintain. 50% stock should be maintained. Though it may not be required, but for at least 2, 3, 4 years, it's not that whatever gold is coming, you are selling it off and all that. Whatever deposit you have, at least 50% you should maintain a reserve stock. Gradually you can cut down to 25%, depending upon the situation and all that.
So it might give some incentive to jewelers also to put their whatever it is they have.
Jewelers, government has done the right thing in this revamped this thing. They have included in their team. Those should be included because they enjoy the trust of the depositor. Those should be included. They can be made a sub-agent of bank.
That's what I was coming to.
Yeah, depositing this thing. That's the right step government has taken. Recently in the revamp.
But they're still not sub-agent of the banks per se.
Yeah. They enjoy. The depositor will say, "आप कर दीजिए, चिंता नहीं है." Okay, I'll do it.
So they will also have a surplus fund in their hand.
Yeah. They will get the service fee for this thing, whatever doing this thing. They will get the gold on a loan also, or multiple business opportunities are with them. It's good that all the stakeholders should be taken in the team. That is how the nation grows. Alone government or alone bank, they cannot do. Everybody should be taken into the team. It's ultimately good for the nation.
So from moving on from gold monetization scheme to another problem area, which is also your pet subject as I was going through the book, lands. Acquisition of land or having land for industrial purposes, that's a major problem wherever you go across the country. So, particularly forest land, tribal lands. So, what kind of reforms that you would recommend so that, for mining, for industrial purposes, there is no dearth of land?
We have to understand that unlike other nations, two typical things are with India. We have 16% population of the world, but land 2.6% only. That means per capita land is low, very low, could be less than 1/5. Another thing is, unlike other nations, most of the land is in the private hands. I mean, not in the government hands.
Majority
of them. And fragmented lots, plots and all that. Under this situation now, lot of projects are held up. Even the infrastructure projects, they are not able to take it up. So we have to do something out of box manner and all that. I propose the first thing, which might be a controversial, that some portion of forest land should be released. Now this appears to be very highly controversial. Like, I'm not bothering about the environment and all that. It's not that, sir. I'm engineer. I'm aware about the environment, and environment should not be compromised.
You're not talking about the whole of it, a part of it.
No. Let me complete it. You see, environment protection we are doing from the green cover, not the forest land. Country has given, I think, 27% to best of my remembrance. I have to check up. 27% of the total land, 27 or 23% of the total land as a forest land. Out of the total forest land, only 10% has got a dense forest. 50% forest land is nominal forest only, nominal trees, and 40% nil trees. There is no tree. अरे भाई आप 2% कम से कम उसमें रिलीज कर दीजिए, and for balance you develop the forest in the balance land. If 2%, 3% land of forest land is released, what is wrong in it? Because you develop the forest, don't preoccupy the land. You have got enough 90% land to develop. So far you have covered only 10% as a dense forest. This is one. Same way, another controversial suggestion, I think forest was 23 and 27% is agro land. As per need, some quantity of agro land should also be released. You can say that again controversy ki how agricultural land can be released and all that. See, our productivity when I say so much of tons per acre is 50%. That means if we release some land also and increase the productivity, our food security is not affected.
To keep the more fertile land for agriculture purpose.
Yeah. So we should not have a closed mind over there. No, it is agriculture we can't do. This we can't do. By and large, one line this thing, considering the shortage of the land, we should have a productive usage of the land. Because ultimately production is not for a corporate or for a individual. It is for generating GDP, which is nothing but the public income. It is for the public purpose. Infrastructure is also for the public purpose. So that should not come on the way. Now, question is ki private land, I don't mean that you, like a colonial rule, you just take it over. Not like that. Not like that. It should be win-win situation for both, and especially for the landowner is poor class or somebody, should be adequately compensated and all that. Now, Land Acquisition Bill 2013 has got some typical things which has made the things complicated, and by virtue of which the local politics gain over the sentiments of the persons. That needs a simplification, which I have suggested in the book. Those are nitty-gritty, it will take time. I have suggested in a practical manner, because I am also, though currently I am in my business, I have been operating business also, so I know about the practical problem. So I have suggested few things in a practical manner, which will be win-win situation for the land giver and land acquirer, both. And of course, there is a restriction on the tribal land. Now, historically, what was happening, the people used to acquire the land from tribals at the cheap cost, indirectly cheating and all that. But now, those things are not possible. At best, you can put the administration and all that in between. On the contrary, by putting a restriction on the tribal, what is happening, in the tribal belt, if the young boy wants to migrate to some city, do some job over there or do some business over there by selling his land and all that, he is not able to sell the land.
So it's a kind of hindrance for them also.
And government wants to do some infrastructure, they are not able to do. If somebody private wants to put up an industry, they are not able to do. So ultimately, who is loser? Those tribal population itself. So we have to take a holistic view of the things. Okay, whatever legacy we had in the past, it was these then required. But with the change of time and all that, we should be with open mind, by and large good for the public, development of the nation. This is what I have. Of course, nitty-gritty, I have suggested this amendment, that amendment. Likewise, I have suggested over there. Minerals. Do you know that mines is having 0.03% of land only? Now, government is auctioning the mines, but they don't have the land right. Production is not able to start. And we are importing coal and mineral. Coal import itself is roughly 200 or 250 million tons in this range, whereas we are the second largest or third largest coal deposit in the country. Now if I say Mumbai, see the land price, you can't afford to have a house. Why can't we increase the FSI? Why can't we release the forest land and agricultural land attached to the city? Because for jobs and everybody rushes to the cities and metros, and there the land is so costly that houses, affordable houses are not available. So we should have a holistic view on the land price And not only that thing. Now,
So for migrant laborers and workers, that's a
yeah,
major problem.
rather I will say service providers, poor persons, driver, this, that, and all that. Where do they stay? That we have to take a holistic view. That details I have suggested over there. How to reduce what thing to change of FSI is one thing. Release of adjoining your forest and agriculture land to the city is another thing. Likewise, some changes has to be done. And then for, as you told, for labours and all that, cheap type of land can be given. If the land cost comes down, I am sure hospitals, the schools, they will also come over there. Now, private, in the private, they are not able to come with for the cost of land. All commercial activity, even a shopkeeper, if you see his balance sheet, a small shopkeeper's balance sheet, his substantial expenses are rent. That will come down. So the public will be benefited. We should economize the cost of the land.
At sometimes seems you also have a big background of an industrialist running your own business. At times it is also seen that industrialists or businessmen, they want government to acquire the land for them at a cheaper cost and hand it over to them. They are not willing to pay whatever may be the market price to the existing landlord. So that mindset has to go.
That is wrong. You see, cheaper, rather I would say, more than the reasonable cost should go to the seller of the land, because he is parting a asset. But the land acquisition bill suggests 4 times, 5 times. That is also wrong. I had suggested, I think, 1.5 to 2 times of the prevailing market price. Fairly all right, and with a compensation of your structures, whatever structures are there. So it has to be a win-win situation for both. Because ultimately that industry is not for a personal benefit of one. We have to segregate between the industry and its owner. Its owner could be a larger shareholder of that, but it is for the public. I have repeatedly mentioned that any productive assets, irrespective of private or this thing, it should be treated as a national asset, irrespective of the management control, because they contribute to the GDP, they contribute to the public income and everything. But first preference, जैसे घर में जो वीक आदमी होता है उसका फेवर होता है, तो वैसे ही obviously when the favor comes between the industry and a poor landowner, favor should go to the landowner. It is natural. It should go to them.
There are places where even government organization, government bodies, they also hold huge parcel of lands which are of no use. So at times they cannot be converted into.
Yeah, should be. As I told you in the beginning, land should be for the productive uses, especially in the cities and metros. Productive means providing a residential accommodation is also productive uses.
Absolutely.
Providing a hospital or a school or any shop and establishment or office, all are productive uses.
Social infrastructure.
Yeah.
Railways also have huge parcel of lands all
They have to
across
keep
the
something for their future expansion and all that, but they can better identify which can be released and all that. But for expansion and all that, they have to keep some surplus land. Like any other industries, they keep some land for expansion and all that.
Now,
A holistic policy has to be done, taking, there should not be too much of restrictions. Those should be removed, to my opinion.
so coming to railways, that suddenly it has come to my mind. You have some thoughts on railways also, because a lot of talks are on railways privatization, private.
That has been
So what are your thoughts on that?
Pet chapter, in fact. I wonder whether you have so much of time.
So very briefly, just your thoughts.
Only brief, I will say. I am not suggesting for selling the railway. Number one, I am suggesting corporatization of the railway. The entire railway activities to be subdivided into 6 corporates, and those corporates may be listed. Why listing I am telling? Some 5%, 10%, whatever as per the SEBI norms is required, let it be go to the public. It does not amount to selling. If somebody says it's selling, no. It is a public sector and public is a 5-10% holding. Management control and everything with this thing. Why I am suggesting this thing? If you see the share of goods traffic by railway, it was 86% at the independent India, 1947. Now it has come to around 25-26%. Balance is taken over by the road sector. Now you can say that what is happening it? Our logistic cost is 2 to 3 times in comparison to the other countries. And this constitutes about 15 to 20% of the finished goods price. So we are not competitive in the logistic price. That becomes a causes inflation, causes incompetitiveness in the export. So as to overcome this thing, railway needs massive investment. I have envisaged about 35 lakh crores it envisages. Whether government can give this much up from the budget? No. Once it is corporatized, they will sell their shares to the public, balance they can raise the debt, and then let this investment be done. Just because we are spending on the road, we should spend on the railway also. There should be balance. Our Gadkari is very active, so road expenditure is going up. Why not to make him railway minister also in the lighter vein? In the lighter vein, of course.
So, before we conclude, I am also tempted to ask you on one thing, since you have touched upon so many issues and subjects. You have also pointed about the volatility of Indian currency, which needs to be get stabilized at some point of time. Right now, lot of talks are on about the cryptocurrency, which in the government of India is also talking about having its own digital currency. Then there are already a number of private players who have already got into cryptocurrency. So once these things are in place or in order, eventually at some point of time, the whole idea is state ceases to exist, because the whole currency will not be controlled by state any longer.
See, rupee should be stable and appreciate. As I feel that I think 2004 to 2008, it was more or less stable. After 2008, it further started this thing, depreciating. And overall depreciation from the beginning, if you see, 1947 the US dollar was 1 rupee, today it's 75. I think it will work out to be something like 6% or something depreciation on year-to-year basis average out. That calculation I have given in the book, might be the data which I am telling slightly here and there. So why should we take the depreciation as a routine matter? Why not, like other countries, rupee should appreciate or stable. If not appreciate, it should be stable. That will strengthen, as I suggested in the gold monetization scheme, that will invite the global inflow of the funds. And as regards the cryptocurrency, we should not talk if this is a currency. What our Honorable Finance Minister has told, I am 100% in agreement to that thing. It is not a currency. Currency can be issued by some sovereign countries. It is by some private persons they have issued something. God knows, I don't have the proper study on this thing. God knows what will happen one day. Even so many, and we should not enter into that area. Though I have not have a deep study, but by and large I say any tender, any instrument which is issued by the private, not supported by the sovereign guarantee and all that. We should not call it a currency, we should not treat it as a currency.
The consequences will be more than one.
This thing. Might be that I should not comment on the whether the illegal uses and could be, I do not know. I don't have the idea. I would not like to comment on that.
Thank you very much for giving us such a long time. It's been fascinating and wonderful talking to you. Sometime back I read a book called 10 Days That Shook a World, but your book, I can tell everyone, all of our viewers, that this is one book that can actually shake the whole thought of Indian economy. So it's a must read book, a lot of thoughts, lot of food for thought, I should say, and thought provoking thoughts also, which will lead to further thoughts. I am sure we will have many more editions of this book as we move along, and we will get many more opportunities to talk to you. There will be full of activities by then. Thank you very much once again.